Boarding day should be the best day of the cruise. Most of the time it is, but it is also the day that sets every other day up, and the mistakes people make in the first 6 hours follow them for the rest of the sailing. Miss the right window, skip the right step, or ignore the right detail, and you spend day 2 fixing what went wrong on day 1. Mistake number 1: arriving at the port at the wrong time. Boarding day has a rhythm, and most cruisers fight it rather than use it. The default instinct is to arrive as early as possible. Get there first, get on first, and get the best experience first. It's a reasonable instinct, and it is almost always wrong. The first boarding window, typically the earliest check-in slots, funnels the maximum number of passengers through the terminal simultaneously. Security lines are at their longest. Check-in desks are processing at full volume. The gangway is moving slowly because every excited passenger who showed up at the same time is now stacked behind every other excited passenger who did the same thing. And then you get on the ship, and the cabin isn't ready. So you're now on a vessel with thousands of other people, nowhere to put your bags, and every public venue operating at peak capacity because you all arrived together. The buffet is the fullest it will be all cruise. The pool deck is claimed. Guest services already has a line that suggests something has already gone wrong for several people, and the day hasn't even started. The window that consistently works better is mid-morning to early afternoon. The initial wave has boarded. The terminal is cleared to a fraction of its earlier volume. Cabins are opening. The ship has settled into something that resembles the experience you actually paid for rather than a very expensive bus terminal. There's also a middle ground move worth knowing. If your embarkation port is a city with things worth seeing, like Miami, Barcelona, Rome, or Singapore, building a half day in the city before heading to the port turns a waiting problem into an extra experience. You arrive relaxed, the terminal is cleared, and boarding day becomes an extension of a good travel day, rather than a test of patience in a fluorescent lit queue. Now, there are exceptions. Priority boarding with a real plan attached to it, like dining reservations to lock, or show bookings to grab, or specialty restaurant queues to beat, can justify early arrival if you move with purpose the moment you're on board. Families with young children who need the kids club registration process handled early have a legitimate reason. But I just want to be first is not a plan. It's a queue. Mistake number 2: not eating before you board. This one sounds minor, but it produces one of the most consistent boarding day frustrations on any ship. The buffet on embarkation day is not the buffet you will experience for the rest of the cruise. It is the buffet operating at maximum passenger volume with a kitchen and service team that is simultaneously managing the last logistics of a turnaround, restocking for 7 days of sailing, and feeding several thousand people who all arrived hungry. The lines are long. The stations cycle unevenly. The seating turns over slowly because everyone arrived at the same time and nobody is in a rush because the ship isn't going anywhere yet. The passenger who eats a proper meal before arriving at the port walks past all of that without a second look. They board. They get oriented. They go somewhere quiet with a drink while the crowd thins. By the time they're hungry again, the buffet is settled into something manageable and the main dining room is open for a relaxed lunch. The passenger who boards hungry makes the buffet their first destination, spends 40 minutes navigating the worst version of it, and starts this sailing mildly frustrated before the ship has even left the dock. This is one of those boarding day mistakes that feels obvious in retrospect and invisible in the planning phase. Nobody books a cruise and thinks, I should eat before I get on the ship. But the passengers who do are consistently the ones who describe embarkation day as easy. Eat before you arrive. It is the lowest effort, highest return decision on the entire boarding day checklist. Mistake number 3: dressing like the vacation has already started. This one is more consequential than it sounds, and it catches people off guard because the logic of it isn't immediately obvious. Boarding day is not yet the vacation. It's a travel day with a destination that happens to float. And like any travel day, Any airport, any immigration queue, and any customs process, it involves official checkpoints, identity verification, security screening, and interactions with port staff and ship personnel who are assessing passengers in a professional context. The guest who boards wearing flip-flops, a novelty tank top, and a carry-on that looks like it was packed in the dark is already starting a conversation they didn't mean to have. Not because crew staff are judging fashion choices, they're not, but because how you present on boarding day affects how smoothly those early interactions go. The muster drill, the safety briefing, the first interactions with your cabin steward, the first time you walk into a specialty restaurant to lock in a reservation. All of these happen on boarding day, often before you've had a chance to change. There's also a practical layer. Boarding day in many home ports involves significant outdoor time. Terminal queues, gangway walks, waiting areas that may or may not be air-conditioned. Dressing for where you actually are, a port facility in potentially direct sun on your feet for an extended period, produces a more comfortable experience than dressing for a deck chair that you won't see for another 2 hours. Comfortable, presentable, and appropriate for a travel day. That's the target. You'll change into whatever you want once you're in your cabin, but the boarding process itself rewards passengers who look like they've done this before, even if they haven't. Mistake number 4, ignoring the muster drill. Every cruiser who has sailed more than once has developed an opinion about the muster drill. Most of those opinions are some version of, I know, and that attitude is precisely the mistake. The muster drill is a legal requirement under international maritime law. The crew is personally accountable for accounting for every passenger. When people hide in cabins or wander off to explore the ship or treat the assembly as an optional orientation they can approximate later, they create a compliance problem that delays the entire ship's departure and burns crew time that has nowhere else to go. Modern cruise lines have shifted to digital or staggered muster systems specifically to reduce the chaos of traditional all-at-once assembly. Those systems require active completion, watching the safety video, physically visiting the muster station, checking in through the app. Skipping steps in that sequence registers as incomplete in the ship's system, and the crew will find you. They always do, and the interaction that follows is one nobody enjoys. It's also worth noting that the safety information in the muster drill is genuinely useful. Most passengers who have cruised multiple times tune it out entirely on the assumption that nothing will go wrong, and that assumption is usually correct. But a 30-second review of where your life jacket is and where your assembly station is located costs almost nothing against the scenario where that information actually matters. Do it first. Treat it like a one-time 15-minute investment that unlocks the rest of the day, because that is exactly what it is. Mistake number 5, heading straight to the cabin and waiting for the bags. The cabin is ready. You walk in, you check every drawer, you open the balcony door, you take the mandatory balcony photo, and then you sit down to wait for your checked luggage to arrive. And you sit. And you sit. Checked bags on embarkation day are delivered to cabin corridors by porters working a logistics operation that involves thousands of pieces of luggage sorted by deck and cabin number, loaded onto a vessel while it is simultaneously boarding passengers and completing its own turnaround checklist. It takes time, often several hours, sometimes until late afternoon. The passengers who treat the cabin as a home base from hour 1 spend embarkation afternoon watching the corridor rather than experiencing the ship. They get restless, they call guest services about missing bags, and they put pressure on a delivery process that is already running at pace. So, treat the first few hours as a ship exploration window. The bags will come. They always come. What doesn't come back is the uncrowded version of the specialty restaurant you could have walked into at noon, or the spa appointment that books out by 2 p.m., or the casino credit promotion that ended before dinner. Leave the cabin. Use the time. Come back to bags that appeared while you were enjoying the first afternoon of your sailing. Mistake number 6, not booking dining and shows on day 1. This is the single most common regret passengers express on the second day of a cruise, and it is entirely preventable. Popular specialty restaurants on major ships sell out. Not get a bit busier, they sell out. The same applies to headline entertainment, the Broadway-style shows, the comedy headliners, the Aqua Theater performances. These venues have fixed capacity, and a ship carrying 3,000 passengers competing for the same slots produces genuine scarcity within hours of boarding. The passengers who board and go directly to a quiet corner with the app or walk to the specialty restaurant desk before it has a queue leave embarkation day with a full week of reservations locked. They eat where they wanted to eat. They see what they wanted to see. And the rest of the week flows around a confirmed schedule rather than a series of disappointed walk-up attempts. The other version of this mistake is passengers who pre-book everything before sailing and then don't confirm those bookings are visible in the app when they board. Pre-booking through a travel agent or the cruise line's website does not always sync cleanly with the onboard system. Check on day one. A reservation that exists in a desktop booking portal but not in the ship's system is not a reservation that will be honored at the restaurant door on night 3. The mistake is treating all of this as something to handle later, after unpacking, after lunch, and after exploring. Later means every other passenger who had the same idea but moved faster has already closed the slots you wanted. The booking window on embarkation day is real, and it is short. Mistake number 7. Overpacking the carry-on. The check bags are on their way. The carry-on is what you're living out of until they arrive. And the carry-on mistake follows a pattern that is immediately obvious by the time you're on the ship. The passenger who overpacked the carry-on is the one dragging a bag that was supposed to be portable through every venue on the ship, unable to set it down anywhere practical, unable to navigate crowded corridors fluidly, and increasingly uncomfortable during the muster drill because they're managing a physical burden while trying to also manage an unfamiliar environment. The carry-on for boarding day has one job: carry what you need for the first 6 hours. Travel documents and boarding passes, medications, a change of clothes if you want to switch out of travel clothes when the cabin opens, valuables that shouldn't go in checked luggage, chargers, a light layer for air-conditioned spaces. This is a small bag. Everything else can wait in checked luggage, which will be at your cabin door before dinner. The passenger with the light carry-on moves through embarkation day with noticeably less friction than the one who packed for every contingency and is now carrying the evidence of that decision through 3 decks and a security line. Mistake number 8. Not checking the daily program before anything else. The daily program for embarkation day is not just a schedule. It's the operational map of what is open, what is closing, what is happening once, and what requires advance action. Passengers who board without reading it makes their decisions based on assumptions from previous cruises, recommendations from people who sailed a different ship, or general impressions that may or may not reflect the current vessel's actual setup. Embarkation day programming varies significantly by ship and by cruise line. Some ships open the main pool deck immediately. Others have areas closed for maintenance during the turnaround. Some specialty restaurants offer embarkation lunch specials that disappear after the first day. Some ships run limited-time onboard credit promotions, spa deals, or shore excursion booking incentives specifically on day 1. Others have onboarding activities that run once and not again. The program is usually available on the app before boarding and as a printed sheet at the guest services desk. Reading it takes 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes tell you what the day actually contains, rather than what you assumed it would. The app version of the daily program also tends to include notifications for flash sales and onboard promotions that don't get announced over the PA system. Drink package upgrades, specialty dining discounts, and spa introductory offers are frequently time-limited to the first day and communicated only through the app. The passenger who checks the program catches those. The one who doesn't usually finds out about them on day 6 from someone at the pool bar, when the offer expired 5 days ago. Mistake number 9. Exchanging currency or withdrawing cash at the port. Ports of embarkation, particularly major ones, are high-demand, low competition environments for financial services. The currency exchange desks and ATMs inside terminals exist because passengers need them, not because they offer good rates. And because passengers need them urgently, with luggage and a boarding time pressure, the incentive to shop around is essentially zero. Exchange rates at port terminal desks are consistently worse than rates available in the city you just came from, at an airport with multiple competing providers, or through a card that handles foreign transaction fees on your behalf. ATM fees inside secure terminals are higher than the ATMs 2 streets away from the port, and the lines in the terminal are longer. The solution is simple and requires nothing on boarding day. Handle currency before you arrive at the port. Do it at home, at the airport, or in the departure city. Arrive at the terminal with what you need already in your pocket. The onboard account system handles almost all ship expenses automatically. Cash needs on embarkation day are minimal. The only people who need the terminal exchange desk are the ones who didn't plan for needing it. Mistake number 10. Skipping the ship walkthrough. The passenger who doesn't walk the ship on boarding day spends the first 3 days of the cruise getting lost. That is not an exaggeration. Large ships, particularly the newer generation of vessels, are genuinely complex physical environments with multiple deck layouts, venues spread across areas that don't connect in obvious ways, and an interior logic that only becomes clear after active exploration. The guest who does a deliberate walkthrough on embarkation afternoon, even a loose one deck at a time orientation rather than a formal tour, builds a mental map that pays dividends every day of the sailing. They know where the specialty restaurants are relative to the main atrium. They know which stairwells go all the way up and which ones stop midship. They know where the quiet areas are, where the crowd tends to pool, and where the hidden bars and lounges are that most passengers don't discover until day 4. The walkthrough also tells you things the deck map doesn't. Which pool is adults only and which one is the one you want to avoid between 2 and 4 p.m. Where the back of the buffet is, which is always less crowded than the front. Which elevator banks are closest to your cabin. None of that appears on the printed layout. It comes from walking the ship once with actual attention. The ship rewards familiarity. The walkthrough is how you build that familiarity on day 1 instead of day 4. Mistake number 11. Ignoring the onboard account setup. The onboard account is how everything on the ship gets paid for, and the time to understand and verify it is on embarkation day, not on day 5 when an unexpected charge surfaces and the guest services queue is 20 people long. Common embarkation day account problems include the credit card on file not authorizing correctly, leading to a hold that creates problems later in the voyage. A spouse or travel partner not linked to the account in the way they expected, meaning their purchases tracked separately from the shared balance. Prepaid packages not appearing in the account, requiring resolution through guest services before the package can be used. Onboard credit from a travel agent or booking promotion not visible yet, leading to purchases made under a false impression of what's covered. All of these resolve faster on embarkation day, when the ship's team is in full setup mode and the guest services desk is processing these exact questions from dozens of passengers simultaneously. The same questions on day 3 take longer to resolve, affect more transactions, and require the passenger to reconstruct a paper trail they could have avoided entirely. Check the account on boarding day. Verify the card. Confirm the packages. Make sure the onboard credit is showing. It takes 10 minutes, and it prevents the specific frustration of a financial discrepancy surfacing mid-cruise when the goodwill of the first few days has already been spent. Mistake number 12. Starting the cruise without a single conversation with the steward. The cabin steward who services your room for 7 days is the person most directly responsible for your daily comfort on board. They know the ship. They know how to make things happen within the system they work in, and they form an impression of every guest in their corridor within the first few hours of boarding day based almost entirely on small signals, the state of the cabin, the card on the door, and whether the guests acknowledge them at all. The passengers who introduce themselves briefly, communicate 1 or 2 clear preferences up front, and treat the steward as the professional they are, set up a dynamic that benefits them for the entire sailing. Not in a transactional way. Stewards are professional enough to serve every cabin to standard regardless, but in a way that every workplace operates. The person who makes your job easier tends to receive the version of your work that has a little more care in it. It takes 30 seconds. Hi, I'm Steve. We prefer extra towels and we'll probably want evening service rather than morning. Is that okay? That exchange sets the parameters for 7 days of service without ambiguity on either side. Compare that to the guest who never speaks to the steward, leaves the service card blank, and wonders on day 3 why the cabin rhythm doesn't quite match what they expected. Boarding day is when that conversation costs the least and pays back the most. The steward is making their own assessment of 20 cabins in the first few hours. You want your first impression to be the easy one. The guest who is clear, brief, and respectful. That impression carries further than most passengers realize. Now, boarding day has a version that runs smoothly and a version that doesn't. The difference is almost never luck. It is the dozen small decisions made in the first 6 hours that either set the week up or spend the week recovering. Get these right and the rest of the cruise takes care of itself. Hit like, subscribe, and watch the next video. Your voyage is just beginning.